How's it going, everybody? I am Josh, KI6NAZ. Today we have a really fun interview with the translator for Rothammel's, that's how you pronounce it, the antenna book from Germany. So let's go say hi and tell you a little bit more about this very interesting and very full of information book.
Schwarz.
Oh boy, I don't think I can do. You got me, Hans. Oh no, Swazd.
Schwarz.
Schwarz.
That's right.
Uh,
That's perfect.
well, without offending this gentleman any further, let's introduce our friend Hans. Hans. AA0RM is American call sign, DK5JI his German call sign. Hans is the translator and proofreader, you were saying, for the
Yeah, right. And
Rothammels.
reviser.
What's that?
And reviser.
Yeah.
Reviser as well.
Oh, good. For the
Mhm.
Rothammels
Mhm.
antenna book, as he's talking about, or will be talking to us about this very interesting book. It has a long lineage, 13 German editions, but this is the first edition that is available in English. That was revised by Hans to be able to make that happen. And he's joining us to talk a little bit about this really, really great book. And so I guess maybe start, Hans, with who is this book for? And maybe if you know somewhat of the lineage, what was the goal of the book? Obviously, it's about antennas. I think we can all say that confidently. But starting with kind of who was this made for when it was designed, and then like what's the book goals? Because 1,600 pages is pretty big.
Of course, this is a historical thing.
Yes.
The first book was only 120 or what.
Oh, really? Okay.
But nevertheless, being a keen amateur, everyone has to look for antenna possibilities. There are large towers. Maybe somebody has got a big yard and whatever. And there are, of course, the problems that may occur when you have handheld operations with antennas
Hmm.
and so on, or field day, portable, mobile, and so on. There are so many possibilities where you, as a keen amateur, would like to ask to get some information about which antenna is the best for my personal surroundings.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the most well, the most general goal with this book, to reach everyone who is interested in getting some idea what he can do in his own surroundings for amateurs,
Mm.
for amateur antennas. And of course, doing that, giving some practical hints, you have to know what is in it antenna. How does it function? What is the fundamental of antenna technology? What is the background of propagation, for instance? So there are a number of things that you have to know before you want to use in the antenna. If you have a big yard and put up an antenna, you want to have it sufficiently working. And this is the goal of this book, to give you some hints about the dimensions, about the success you can maybe have
Mm.
to get even the most out of your antenna. The possibility to have a look at other antennas, which might be possible. Let's say I'm doing a lot of portable antennas. I am working now at this time with a angular dipole in whatever, 12 feet or something, very low, so NVIS,
Right.
near vertical incident, and it does work.
Yeah.
It really works on 40 meters.
Mm.
And so I myself got the idea of putting up a quad for 40 meters as an NVIS, a near vertical incident system, in a very low height,
Huh.
to with a balloon and it worked even better than my normal typo on 40 meters.
Really?
That's it. I got the idea from this book before I went into this translation.
Wow.
And since then, I've been an active radio ham all over the world. I'm very interested in getting DX contacts as well as experience with technical things like, for instance, antennas.
Mm.
And I'm a translator.
Ah,
You see, I have been working as a translator. It was in between that I had the opportunity to be a chief editor of the CQL, which is the German magazine of the DARC, ham
oh,
radio magazine.
okay.
I was there for 10 years, but then I started my career as a technical translator. And well, I then got the opportunity to get a professorship in 97, no, sorry, 97, yeah, right,
Mm.
at the university. And I educated people in being technical translators. So that's my subject
Oh, that's
that I have been doing.
well. This is a pretty technical book, so it sounds like they got the right
Yeah.
person for the job.
You see, doing translation is always a very multi-level thing.
Mhm.
You have to think about language, fine, but that doesn't suffice. You have to be to think about the technical the things that are in the text, as well as cultural things, cultural background, cultural in very broad sense.
Yeah.
Uh, for instance, regarding the systems of measurements, this is kind of culture.
Oh,
Uh,
sure. Yeah, between America
Regarding
and yeah.
the structure of texts, the American texts are very different in structure. It's extremely in a scientific text,
Mm,
but I could do it. I couldn't do it with that book, you see,
mm.
and so on and so forth. And this is really a very sophisticated thing to have a translation afterwards being with your name, you see, published with your name. And that was the thing that I said, okay, let's do it. I'm retired, or have been retired since 2015. Um, and afterwards, I got this kind of offer to do this translation. Well, regarding this Karl Rothammel, he was born in 1914, and he was a very active amateur even in the 30s.
Ah, okay.
So whenever before the GDR started, of course, and it was in 1954 that he got this GDR call sign. DM2 Alpha Bravo Kilo was his first call, and he in his area he was the first amateur after the World War. So he was one of the very
Really?
old-fashioned amateurs. Yeah, right.
Uh,
And
so he was a ham in what'd you say? When did he become a ham?
32,
Oh, 32. Got it. Okay.
1932.
So First World
And
War.
then he started in the GDR because there was no amateur radio before in the GDR in
Ah,
those days.
okay.
It started in 54, and he got the DM2 ABK
Oh,
call sign.
gotcha. So Second World War, after Second World War in the 50s,
That's right.
got his call sign, one of the first, or is the first.
It is the first in his section, you see. And then in 59, he had the first edition of this Antennenbuch. Just call it Antennenbuch. Later on, it got acquainted as Rothammel's Antennenbuch, you see.
Sure.
But he was very well known all over the place, but he just called it Antennenbuch, antenna book.
Right. Sure.
But
Help me
he
out. Help me out for a
sorry,
second.
yeah,
The pronunciation of the last name, because here in the States, we would say Rothammel. So Rothammer? What? Rothammel?
Rothammel. Rothammel. Not
Rothammel.
combined thamel, but rot means red, and Hammel. Rothammel.
Rothammer. Hamel.
Yeah.
Rothammel.
Hammel. Just pronounced as it was a U. Hummel.
Hummel.
Hummel. That's perfect.
Oh, okay. Okay. Interesting. Very
Rothammel.
good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. So, so here, right, we have so many antenna books in the States,
Yes.
right? The
Yeah, right.
ARRL makes a ton.
Right.
But this it's kind of distinct in an interesting way, right? It's so deep with the amount of content in it, but then there's also a lot of just some of the theory behind it in the beginning, as well as breaking down kind of effectively how some of the antennas work, at least in their function of assembly.
Mhm.
It's a fascinating book, and the legacy of it is really really interesting. So yeah, thanks for being on. There are a lot of antennas that are covered in this book. Do you know some of the reason, like which antennas? I mean, obviously dipoles, monopole, verticals. Obviously, that's going to be in every kind of antenna book. But I saw like an isotron is in this book, which is a bit of a more obscure antenna. So how were antennas picked? Do you know some of the reasoning as to why it was covered into such great detail?
I know Alois, the editor of Rothammel's book. He once told me, I know him personally,
Mm.
or knew him. He told me that he wanted to leave these antennas in the book, although they were so unknown.
Yeah.
Because somebody might be interested in getting more details about an antenna that he is not used to. Some of these antennas have been described in the sixth or seventh edition of
Mm.
Rothammel himself.
Yeah.
And no one else will take any note about this antenna, at least when he is not reading the Rothammel. So that was the goal behind mentioning very unknown antennas as well.
Yeah, I like the idea of if you truly are a tome of knowledge, taking knowledge out of the tome would be against the whole idea of it, right? I first saw an isotron. There's actually one at the ham radio outlet here just down the street from me, and I saw
You
it for the
see,
first time, and I years ago
yes,
saw it. Very odd looking antenna.
yeah,
And so when I saw it in the book, I was like, wow, that's really interesting that they included it. But that's very
yeah.
cool. There is a part in the beginning of the book which I found really interesting, and it almost is asking the question if you are not like technically trained or of an RF design background, that you could skip portions, right, of the reading of the book. And can you go into some detail on that, because that's something that you wouldn't probably see in the States so much, to tell you to skip portions of a book? Why was that?
This is maybe a typical European way of thinking about structuring a book.
Sure.
Right. I must say, I have stick to the structure of the book,
Sure.
making this translation.
Mm.
But I noticed that it might be worthwhile to think about why are these chapters, these sections included in the book? Because some might think that they just read it through and they say, well, I know all thing about that. So I thought it was worthwhile to think about uh, just mentioning that it's not very important to read when you are, at least as long as you are acquainted with this subject.
Yeah.
I just kept this passage. It's not an entire section, I
No,
know.
yeah.
No, it's a couple of years ago now. But I thought it would be worthwhile to keep it in that way, that somebody might think, oh well, it's maybe a surprise, but I just read it through, and maybe there are still things that I didn't know. Maybe, for instance, this chapter about it's not a chapter; it's just a few text parts about beacon stations, and so on.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
They belong to propagation, of course.
Yeah. And when in reference to the first part of the book, there is some good detail on kind of propagation and measurements of antennas, or the nomenclatures we use for measurements, not just in links, but in the various things that are important to antennas. So this is obviously a legacy of fantastic information. Hams in Germany have been using this for,
In 59.
wow, very impressive. Has it seen kind of adoption kind of outside of Germany now? This being the first English edition, how has it been kind of in the rollout as far as people seeing it and help and getting help from it?
It's a very interesting question because there is no really no real reaction from other parts of the world except for those that are speaking English, and
Ah,
that's the world. You see, I have nothing to do with the marketing, and I have nothing to
sure.
do with sales. To be sure.
Yeah.
Uh, but when we started this translation, there were a couple of people giving me a call, and when are you ready with the book? From Slovenia, for instance, from
Oh.
Norway, from Spain, even in South American told me on the band. For any reason, they had heard of this translation, and he asked me, when will this book be published? I see. He said, well, let me just finish the translation,
Yeah.
and we see what else. Even it's the world English.
Yes.
And we decided, of course, there was the decision, US English or British English.
Mm.
Uh, what is the difference? It's very difficult. I'm the professor for this kind of theory behind it, and we just try to get this so-called world English, whatever that is.
I think you did a fantastic job, and I had heard about this book from another YouTube creator, a friend of mine named Smokin' Ape. He has recommended this book to many people on his YouTube channel, and now it's available at Gigaparts, which you can find it online. There will be a link in the
Hmm.
video description
I
for that.
know.
Yes.
Hmm.
So, what is the favorite section when you were working on doing the translation over, or what do you think is the best part of the book? If you were a radio amateur, what would you point them at to go take a look at, and what could they learn from it?
That's a very personal
I
question
guess. Well,
because
yeah,
I
sure,
prefer
yeah, for
I
you
prefer
personally.
wire antennas. I'm
What's
a
it?
friend of wire
Great,
antennas.
great.
And having all these dimensions of wire antennas, there are tons of wire antennas described over there, some even vertical wire antennas.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, this is my favorite because I don't have a mast. I don't have I just have a pole
Oh,
in the in my yard. And that was the most interesting part I had. And I know that many people all over the world have the same situation like me. They just want to be QRV, maybe under limited circumstances, but with an antenna that it's sufficient for making the X or making a 40-meter operation, for instance, for their local or regional area, and so on. And this is, I think, the most interesting part for me.
mm,
This is very personal, very individual, if I say that. But this is kind of giving ideas to others what they should try when they have a certain environment and you of course a certain imagination. What do you do? What do you want? Do you want to make DX on 40 a simple dipole? It works, but how could you perform with that some DX traffic and so on?
mm.
But if you're a DXer, there are lots of other information regarding cubic quartz or Yagis and whatever you have, or even periodic log periodics.
Yes,
Um,
yeah.
is of course a kind of variety. It depends on your personal hobby
Yeah.
within amateur radio, and that's what we always talk about. This variety of different things in amateur radio, and
Mm.
even in antenna technology, you have a wide variety of possibilities.
I think that's well said. Statistically, that has to be pretty accurate as well, because I think the vast majority of hams are wire antenna users, right? I think that's the more common use
Right.
for sure. This is it's a large book, 1,600 pages, right? And it has so much detail in it. If we're talking to an amateur radio operator and they are looking at this for the first time, how should they approach this book? Do you think they should just dive in and read the first couple of sections and then maybe poke around to different antennas, or how would you recommend someone consume the content in this book?
It's not my work. The list of contents was not done by me, but I
Sure,
think
sure.
the most it was done by the publisher, and there was someone complaining about the title list of content. Uh, I always thought, well, this is kind of content as well,
Sure.
what we look at there.
Yeah.
But the contents, it's of course worthwhile to think about reading the first sections, right?
Yeah.
But then you can go through the main chapters and look for your own areas
Mm.
of interest. For instance, are you an HF man? Or do you like to do some satellite operations?
Yeah.
You have to have a dish. What's in the book to get some information about dishes? How can you construct them? So you might dig into that portion of the book that might get the most interesting for you. That doesn't mean that you just read from one to the next chapter, one,
Yeah.
two, three, four, five.
Yes. Yes.
No one except the translator will do that.
Well, I thought that's why I would ask, since you probably did read it cover to cover, had to
Sure.
be able to do the job,
Truly,
right?
and of course, I kept the order
Ah,
when doing the translation. But that's for other reasons, for practical reasons, because something might be repeated in other chapters, and what's in the chapter before. I did some amendments from time to time to get the whole thing working, of course. But that's I think for normal user, it's the best way to think about well going into the book and trying to get the right chapter or chapters, maybe a couple of them, where you get the first idea, and maybe you just to read around
mm,
afterwards.
yeah. Well, I guess then you can help me out here on to the new community, or the new kind of market that this book is available in English. What do we need to know about it? Because again, 1,600 pages is almost a daunting amount of information, but I treat it kind of like a really good preface in the front part, right? Good information in kind of explaining the language of antennas, the function,
Hmm.
how they work, and
Hmm.
then the rest is kind of like you said. I looked through the list of contents and I went to the antennas that I find personally interesting or that I want to
Hmm.
build, and I marked them, and I'm gonna go back to it. But what do we need to know about the book as far as somebody who'd be approaching this for the first time?
One must say that it's comprehensive regarding not only going into detail, but of course covering the entire technology and the practical operation of antennas.
Sure.
This should be, of course, always said that this is rather in-depth, giving all this information. I know, of course, a couple of other publications, and they are really good. I won't tell that, but nevertheless, this book for me is it's more practical. Even
Yeah.
it goes to the theory. It's practical regarding the dimensions, regarding maybe some other hints that you have to obey. To build to be able to build this antenna that has been described in the sentence before. So to get somebody the idea of what is in the field of antennas and how can I cope with this antenna form in my personal surrounding. I think one of the biggest advantages, and it's not my fault that I did it, but this is, of course, the basic idea behind this book.
Yeah, I think the word I think you nailed it. Comprehensive is exactly what I would say too, right? It is incredibly helpful right in the beginning to kind of lay a foundation for those who may not know some of the information, and then many antennas to, in some cases, great detail. Like again, I went through the I read about many antennas, but the vertical monopole area I thought was pretty interesting because oftentimes we don't refer to the antenna as a monopole, right? We talk about it. We'll talk about a quarter wave vertical or whatnot, and then going into greater detail, kind of on that whole idea was, I think, very helpful, very fascinating. So,
Me as a translator don't get any reaction response. So it's
oh,
very interesting to get. It's not about the book; it's about myself. Um,
I see, I see. So, do you have somewhere people can reach out to you if they want to provide feedback or they want to,
I gave my address in there.
Okay, good.
Somewhere my address is given there. So, but nevertheless, it's not because of the effort of the book, the success or not success, but regarding what should we think about new chapters? What has
ah,
been changed?
mm,
What should we amend in new publications, in
sure.
new editions in that book?
So is
Uh,
this
this,
something that you want people to reach out to you and then provide those thoughts and those comments on?
Maybe you see, it was in 13
Mm,
that this edition was written,
yeah.
and I did the translation from 16 to 17.
Mm,
So there are so many things that happened in between regarding antenna and new antennas. For instance, the hex quad or the hex beams.
yes.
No one was thinking about this form of antenna
Mm,
in those days. Um, uh,
sure. Yeah.
Regarding antenna forms, so I think this is what well. On the other hand, this is again just a very interesting item to think about when you trust thinking or working with this book. There might be some new ideas that you get
Mm.
from out of the book to make some amendments to some ideas given in the book for your purposes.
I love that. Okay. And you said address like in physical address, or do you have like an
No,
email
no, no,
address or
an email address.
Okay, good. Yeah,
Email.
that's I'm like, "Oh
Yeah.
boy, you're going to get QSL cards with things written all over it with recommendations." Uh, well, very good. I appreciate you taking the time. This has been fascinating and enlightening. So I've been reading the book now for I've had it for a little over
Hmm.
3 or 4 months now. I actually I ordered it direct
Yes.
from Dark.
From oh yes. Mhm.
So I before Gigaparts even sent the email, I had already had it and had been reading it because
Mhm.
I was like, oh, this is
Mhm.
I got to have this in my library because it is
Mhm.
absolutely a wealth of knowledge. So you did a great job, and at least from my opinion, I don't think you made any mistakes. I think you did it perfect.
Thank you so much. Well, I appreciate it very much to give me the chance to talk about this book with you and give some the flames to others what are in me regarding the theory of antennas and the practical things of antennas. This is my real subject area as a ham. I'm using only a 100 watts and 355, 52 DXCC countries with wire antennas. So it works. Uh,
Well, then I'll ask you the personal question of your radio setup. What antenna are you actually running for most of your contacts these days?
It's there are three antennas.
Ah,
There's this quad, this lying quad, horizontal quad,
horizontal.
in a very low height at this moment. It's only 3 meters.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Works. It works.
Yeah.
Maybe 80% of the power will go into the ground, but
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
the others, it's enough to get a good signal.
Yes.
But it's only for test purposes. Then I got the 9 band vertical with a couple of radials, full size radials for 80 meters. I've got 3 radials in my yard. And I got this angular dipole with a twin
Hmm.
lead, sorry, and it works beautiful.
So twin
This
lead fed. So it's like a doublet kind of.
not it's an 80-meter dipole.
Oh. Okay. Okay.
A
Wow.
diameter dipole with the one-to-one balloon. It should be a 1-to-4, but I just tried it to 1-to-1, but it works. And then, of course, I got an antenna tuner uh, where you just not match the impedance, but match the antenna.
Mm.
Of course,
Yes.
that's of course the basic idea behind the tuner, and it works really good from
Wonderful.
160 to 6 meters.
Yes, I do like the twin lead. I'm becoming a fan of the twin lead fed antennas. Even for
Mhm.
portable, I have a portable one that I can
Yes,
drag out with a mast that I guy, and I
yeah,
love it because again, yeah, multi-band, all everything you pretty
yeah,
much want to do.
yeah,
It's very
yeah.
effective.
Right. And you have a low elevation,
Oh yeah.
lower than a normal dipole.
Hmm. Oh, like
So
takeoff?
basically inverted or what?
Are you talking
It's
elevation or
lower.
takeoff angle?
Yeah, that's right.
Mm, mm.
That's right.
Very
Takeoff
good.
angle.
Very
Yeah,
good.
that's right.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, I again implore everybody to take a look at this fantastic book, and
Mm.
I'm thankful that things like this, exist in amateur radio, being such
Thank you
a
so much.
difficult hobby in the sense of the technical depth, right? The technical depth of this hobby is something you will spend the rest of your life
Right.
chasing understanding, and there's still portions of it
That's
that are
right.
just going to be way over your head, right? Because it's so
Yeah,
different in different areas. But
yeah,
antennas are paramount to every ham, and I think this book does a fantastic job.
that's right.
So thank
That's
you
right.
for your time in both being on the show, but also doing the hard work you did for the book.
And I wish everyone great success with antennas. Thank you so much for the attendance and for the attention. And thank you so much, Josh, that to see you here on the video and to have the opportunity to introduce you to this book. And I'm very glad about it. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
I appreciate it, Hans. Thanks for being on the show. We very much thank you for that. And I just want to say again, thank you 1,000 times to Hans for being on the show and walking through his work with Rothammel's antenna book. You can find this at Gigaparts here in the States, and I will have a link in the video description. This is a book that every ham should own. Period. Hard stop. End of question. This is an incredibly important book. And yes, it is deep in knowledge. And yes, you will have to spend some time with it. The front part of the book can be a bit complicated. It can be a bit difficult in some cases for those of you that are new to these measurement terms and some of the math. But the antenna portions that break down an antenna you might be interested in, along with images, can be incredibly helpful for someone that wants to set up an antenna in their home, in a small lot, something big for portable, or somewhere if you have a huge amount of space. This book covers all of it, and you owe it to yourself to take a look at it. So again, link is in the description. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you all later. 73.